A millionaire gave chocolates to a set of triplets on Christmas Eve, and the following day 2 police cars parked in front of his mansion. The cold December air cut through the town's main square, but not even the icy wind could dim the sparkle in the eyes of Emily, Ethan, and Olivia. The 6-year-old triplets, bundled in worn and patched clothing, sat on a weathered wooden bench, their small hands clutching pencils and paper. "Ethan, you write. Your handwriting is the nicest," said Emily, the oldest by 2 minutes. Olivia nodded in agreement. "It's true. Santa Claus needs to understand exactly what we want." The children did not notice the pitying looks from passers-by, who saw their threadbare shoes and fingerless gloves. To them, this moment was magical. Writing to Santa Claus held the promise of a better Christmas. Ethan began writing carefully, tongue caught between his teeth in concentration. "Dear Santa Claus," he dictated aloud. "We are Emily, Ethan, and Olivia," Emily continued. "Mom said you're very busy this year," Olivia interrupted, her eyes shining. "But that's okay. We can just ask for one little thing." The 3 children huddled together, whispering before Ethan resumed writing. "But whatever you give us will make us happy." Michael Thornton, dressed in an expensive coat, was passing through the square when he heard the children's voices. Something about their innocence and hope made him stop. Hidden behind a nearby tree, he watched the triplets. "But if you can," Emily hesitated, looking at her siblings. "If you can, we'd really like some chocolate," Olivia added timidly. "Just one to share," Ethan quickly added. Michael felt a lump in his throat. The simplicity of their request and their willingness to share touched his heart in a way he hadn't felt for years. Without a second thought, Michael hurried off with determined steps. He found a fine chocolate shop and purchased the most elaborate box he could find. His heart was racing, a long-forgotten emotion stirring inside him. Returning to the square, Michael saw the children still sitting on the bench, rereading their letter with hopeful smiles. A sudden idea struck him. Entering a nearby costume shop, he emerged minutes later dressed as Santa Claus. With hesitant steps, Michael approached the triplets. "Ho, ho, ho! I've heard there are some very special children around here." The triplets' eyes widened in shock and delight. Emily was the first to recover. "Santa Claus, are you real?" Michael felt his heart melt. "Of course I am. And I heard your request." Ethan and Olivia looked at each other, barely able to contain their excitement. "You heard?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling with emotion. "I sure did," Michael answered, pulling the box of chocolates from his bag. "And I believe this is for you." The children's hands trembled as they took the box, their eyes shining with joyful tears. It's so much more than we asked for," Olivia whispered, stroking the box as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. At that moment, a worried voice cut through the air. "Emily! Ethan! Olivia!" Sarah, the triplets' mother, ran into the square, her face a mixture of relief and concern. Seeing Santa Claus, she hesitated, confusion and wariness in her eyes. "Mom! Mom! Santa Claus came!" the triplets shouted in unison, running to hug her. Sarah looked from Michael to the children and then to the box of chocolates, her expression wavering between gratitude and caution. Thank you," she finally said, her voice heavy with emotion. Michael nodded, feeling an inexplicable connection to this small family. As Sarah gathered the children, preparing to leave, he couldn't help but notice the hopeful gleam in her eyes, a gleam he himself hadn't felt in a long time. Watching them walk away, Michael realized that something had changed within him. What began as a simple stroll through the square had turned into something far more meaningful. Little did he know that this encounter would be only the beginning of a journey that would change not just his life, but that of the entire community. The sun had barely risen above the horizon when 2 police cars pulled up silently in front of Michael Thornton's imposing mansion. Dew still covered the meticulously trimmed lawn, reflecting the gentle morning light. Detective Jessica Reeves stepped out of the first car, her keen eyes examining the house's facade. At 35, Jessica was known for her tenacity and sharp intellect. Her brown hair was pinned back in a tight bun, and her well-tailored suit exuded professionalism. "Remember, we remain professional," she instructed her team quietly. "Mr. Thornton may be one of the wealthiest men in town, but that doesn't put him above the law." As they approached the door, Jessica couldn't help but notice the contrast between the mansion's opulence and the modest homes they passed on the way. The inequality was striking, and she wondered if it had anything to do with the case they were investigating. The sound of the doorbell echoed inside the house. Rushed footsteps were heard, and soon the door opened, revealing Michael Thornton, still dressed in a silk robe. "Can I help you?" he asked, with confusion evident on his face. Jessica showed her badge. "Mr. Thornton, I'm Detective Jessica Reeves. We have a warrant to investigate your premises and would like to ask you some questions about your company." Shock was plain on Michael's face. "An investigation? What is this about?" "Suspicions of financial fraud, Mr. Thornton. Please accompany us to the living room. We have a lot to discuss." As Michael led them inside, his mind raced. Fraud? How could that be possible? He had always been meticulous with his business dealings, always following the rules to the letter, or so he thought. In the luxurious living room, Jessica began her questioning. "Mr. Thornton, we've received information about significant discrepancies in your company's accounts. Can you explain this?" Michael shook his head, incredulous. "There must be some mistake. I personally oversee all major transactions." As he answered Jessica's questions, Michael's mind drifted to the previous day. The encounter with the triplets in the square, their joy at receiving chocolates. How could something so pure exist in the same world as these sordid accusations? A flashback invaded his thoughts. Michael saw himself alone in his mansion years ago, right after losing his family. The pain of loneliness was almost tangible. It was then that he decided to use his wealth to do good, secretly. Since then, he had donated millions to charitable causes, always anonymously. Hospitals were built, schools were founded, families lifted out of poverty, all without anyone knowing he was behind it. "Mr. Thornton," Jessica's voice brought him back to the present. "So I asked about a series of transfers made last month. Can you explain them?" Michael hesitated. Those transfers were for a new pediatric wing at the local hospital, but how to explain this without revealing his secret philanthropy? "I need to check with my financial team," he replied evasively. Jessica frowned, making a note in her pad. The investigation was only beginning, and she sensed there was much more to uncover. Meanwhile, across town, Sarah, the triplets' mother, left home with determination. With the chocolates tucked away for a special moment, she kissed the children and sent them off to school. "Remember, don't tell anyone about Santa Claus yet," she warned. "Let's keep that as our little secret for now." The children nodded, though their eyes sparkled with excitement. Sarah knew it would be hard for them to keep the news quiet, but she was still cautious about that strange encounter in the square. With the triplets on their way to school, Sarah began her job hunt. The stack of bills on the kitchen table was a constant reminder of her precarious situation. She needed to find something, anything, to keep the family afloat. Her first stop was a small convenience store. "Sorry, we're not hiring right now," she was told. The same happened at the bakery, the laundromat, and the little cafe on the corner. Frustration grew within Sarah, but she refused to give up. The smiling faces of her children were all the motivation she needed to keep trying. Meanwhile, at school, Emily, Ethan, and Olivia could barely contain their excitement. During recess, they huddled in a corner of the playground, whispering excitedly. "Do you think Santa Claus will visit other children too?" asked Olivia, her eyes shining with hope. Ethan nodded vigorously. "Of course, he's Santa Claus after all." Emily, always the most cautious, hesitated, but Mom said not to tell anyone. The three fell silent, thinking it over. That's when Tommy, a classmate, approached. "What are you guys whispering about?" he asked, curious. The triplets exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, Emily spoke up. "Oh, nothing much, Tommy. We were just talking about Christmas." Tommy grinned. Cool, I asked Santa for a new bike. What about you guys? Ethan was about to mention the chocolates when Olivia nudged him, reminding him of their promise to their mother. We asked for a surprise, she answered quickly. As the children returned to their classroom, their hearts were light with the secret they shared. For them, the world was still a magical place, full of possibilities and Christmas miracles. Back at Michael's mansion, the investigation continued. Jessica and her team sifted through documents, asked pointed questions, and collected evidence. Michael watched, confusion and worry etched on his face. "Detective Reeves," he called when she passed by him. "I truly don't understand what's happening here. My company has always operated within the law." Jessica studied him for a moment. There was something in Michael's eyes, a sincerity that intrigued her. But she had seen that look before in other suspects who initially seemed innocent. "Mr. Thornton, sometimes people do things they believe are right, but can be interpreted differently by the law," she said carefully. "It's our job to find the truth, whatever it may be." Michael nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. As he watched the officers work through his home, he couldn't help thinking about the triplets and their mother. That brief interaction in the square had awakened something in him, a desire to do more, to be better. But now, with this investigation, everything seemed uncertain. Michael wondered if his secret acts of charity might have somehow placed him in this situation. The irony did not escape him. His attempt at doing good might be the cause of his downfall. As the day went on, 3 stories unfolded in parallel. Michael facing an investigation that threatened to destroy everything he had built, Sarah struggling to find a way to support her family, and the triplets living in the magical bubble of their Santa Claus experience. What none of them knew was that their paths were about to cross again in ways that would change their lives forever. The police station's interview room was cold and impersonal, the grey walls seeming to close in on Michael Thornton as he awaited questioning. His expensive suit, normally a source of confidence, now felt heavy and uncomfortable. The door opened and Detective Jessica Reeves entered, carrying a thick file. Her piercing eyes met Michael's, and he felt an involuntary shiver. "Mr. Thornton," she began, her voice calm but firm, "let's start from the beginning. Tell me about the founding of your company." Michael took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "I started Thornton Enterprises 20 years ago, with nothing but an idea and a lot of hard work." As Michael spoke, Jessica flipped through documents in her file. "And this series of transactions in 2015, can you explain them?" Michael hesitated. That year marked the start of his secret donations, after the loss of his family. How could he explain without revealing everything? "So they were investments in various projects," he replied, choosing his words carefully. Jessica raised an eyebrow. "Projects that don't appear in any official reports." The questioning went on for hours, each inquiry feeling more incisive than the last. Michael felt cornered, his secret philanthropy now seeming more like a curse than a blessing. Meanwhile, across town, Sarah stepped nervously into a small clothing store. The doorbell tinkled, announcing her arrival. "Welcome to Bella's boutique." A middle-aged woman smiled warmly. "Can I help you?" Sarah swallowed hard. "Actually, I'm here about the job posting." The owner, Clara, studied Sarah for a moment before smiling again. "Great timing. We need extra help for the holiday season. Have you worked in retail before?" Sarah shook her head. "No, but I learn fast and I'm willing to do anything." Something in Sarah's determined gaze touched Clara. "You know what? Let's give it a try. Can you start tomorrow?" Relief flooded Sarah. A job. It wasn't much, but it was a start. At school, Emily, Ethan, and Olivia faced their own challenges. During lunch, Ethan looked sadly at his simple sandwich while other students enjoyed more elaborate meals. "Hey, Ethan," called Tommy, showing off a new handheld gaming device. "Check out what I got. Want to play?" Ethan hesitated, his face flushing. Maybe later, Tommy." Emily, noticing her brother's discomfort, stepped in. "Actually, we were thinking of playing outside. Want to join us?" Tommy shrugged and went back to his other friends, Olivia hugged Ethan. "Don't be sad. We have something way better than video games, remember?" The three smiled, thinking of the special chocolates waiting at home. Back at the police station, Jessica continued her investigation, now focusing on Robert Harris, Michael's former business partner. "Mr. Thornton, tell me about your relationship with Robert Harris," she requested. Michael frowned. "Robert? We were partners for years, but we parted ways about 5 years ago. We had disagreements about the company's direction," Jessica made a note. "And after the separation, very little contact," Michael answered. "Why? Is Robert involved in this?" The detective simply observed him, her face a mask of neutrality. "We're exploring all possibilities, Mr. Thornton." Meanwhile, in a luxurious office on the other side of town, Robert Harris watched the news coverage of Michael's investigation, an enigmatic smile playing on his lips. "It seems the great Michael Thornton has finally fallen," he murmured to himself, twirling a pen between his fingers. Robert picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Hello? Yes, it's me. Things are developing as planned. Keep monitoring the situation." Back at the police station, Michael was finally released, though warned that the investigation was ongoing. Exhausted, he climbed into his limousine and loosened his tie. "Home, sir?" asked the driver. Michael hesitated. "No. Take me to the town's main square, please." Minutes later, Michael found himself sitting on the same bench where he had met the triplets. The sky was beginning to darken, the first stars timidly appearing. Closing his eyes, he relived the moment, the children's hopeful faces, the simplicity of their request, the pure joy in their eyes when they received the chocolates. "How can something so simple mean so much?" he murmured to himself. In that moment, reflecting on his life, Michael realized the emptiness that had consumed him for so long. His wealth, his business empire, everything seemed insignificant compared to the genuine happiness he had seen in those children's eyes. A group of kids ran past, laughing and playing. Michael watched them, feeling a pang of sadness. He had never had the chance to have children of his own, and now, facing this investigation, he questioned all the choices he had made. Maybe, he thought, maybe it's time for a change. Meanwhile, Sarah arrived home, exhausted but hopeful. The triplets greeted her with enthusiastic hugs. "Mom, how did it go? Did you get a job?" they asked in unison. Sarah smiled, gently stroking their hair. "Yes, my loves, I did. It's not much, but it's a start." The children cheered, dancing around the small living room. Sarah watched them, her heart overflowing with love. Despite all the hardships, moments like this made everything worthwhile. "How about we celebrate with a piece of that special chocolate?" she suggested. The triplets' eyes shone with excitement. As Sarah went to fetch the box, she couldn't help thinking about the mysterious Santa Claus who had brought a bit of magic into their lives. Back at the square, Michael stood up, a new determination in his eyes. Regardless of the investigation's outcome, he decided it was time to do more, to be better. The brief encounter with the triplets had planted a seed, and now it was beginning to bloom. As he walked back to his limousine, Michael failed to notice a figure lurking in the shadows, watching him closely. Robert Harris smiled, making a quick phone call. "He's at the square." He looks thoughtful. "Keep an eye on him and keep me posted." The lives of Michael, Sarah, the triplets, and Robert continued to intertwine. Though none of them fully realized it, each faced their own challenges, dreams, and secrets, unaware of how their actions would affect one another in the days ahead. As night fell over the town, each of them prepared for what tomorrow would bring. Michael to face the consequences of his secret philanthropy, Sarah for her new job, the triplets for another day of school, and Robert for the next move in his dark game. Fate had set its gears in motion, and now all that remained was to see where they would lead. The full moon hung over the town, casting long shadows through the window of Michael Thornton's office. Seated in his leather armchair, he absently turned a picture frame in his hands. The photo showed a smiling woman and a curly-haired girl, their eyes bright with happiness. Elizabeth Sophie, Michael murmured, his fingers tracing the faces he had not seen in so long. The accident had happened 7 years ago. A rainy night, a treacherous curve, a drunk driver coming the wrong way. In a matter of seconds, Michael lost everything he loved most in the world. A distant rumble of thunder made him shiver. The memory of that fateful night still haunted him. The sound of twisting metal, the screams, the deafening silence that followed. Michael stood up abruptly, unable to remain seated. He walked to the window, looking out at the sleeping city. After the tragedy, he had begun his anonymous donations. It was his way of giving meaning to the emptiness, of trying to fill the hole in his heart with acts of kindness. Did I do the right thing? He wondered, thinking of the ongoing investigation. Or did I just make a colossal mistake? Meanwhile, in her small apartment, Detective Jessica Reeves was immersed in piles of documents. Her sharp eyes scanned financial reports, bank statements, and transaction records. "Wait a minute," she murmured, sitting up straight. A pattern was beginning to emerge. Large sums of money leaving Michael's accounts but not going to offshore accounts or suspicious investments. They went to charities. Jessica frowned, intrigued. Hospitals, orphanages, schools in underprivileged areas, all receiving substantial donations from anonymous sources that lined up perfectly with the withdrawals from Michael's accounts. "Why hide this?" she asked aloud. Philanthropy wasn't a crime, after all. Unless there was something more behind these donations, Jessica made a mental note to dig deeper. Michael Thornton was proving to be an increasingly complex puzzle. The next morning, Sarah rushed around the kitchen, preparing breakfast for the triplets while trying to get ready for her first day at work. "Emily, did you grab your math book?" she asked, placing toast on the table. "Yes, Mom," Emily replied, helping Olivia tie her shoes. Ethan entered the kitchen holding a drawing. "Mom, look what I made for Santa Claus." Sarah smiled, but her heart tightened. The mysterious Santa Claus still made her uneasy. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. But remember, it's our little secret, okay?" The triplets nodded solemnly, but their eyes sparkled with the excitement of the shared secret. After dropping the children off at school, Sarah hurried to Bella's boutique. Clara greeted her with a warm smile. "Ready for your first day?" she asked, handing Sarah a name tag. Sarah nodded, determined, more than ready. The hours passed in a blur of customers, folded clothes, and inventory numbers. By noon, Sarah was exhausted but fulfilled. "You're doing very well," Clara remarked during the break. "You have a knack for this." Sarah smiled gratefully. Maybe, she thought, things were finally looking up. At school, the triplets whispered excitedly during recess. "What if we make a giant card?" Olivia suggested. "Or a drawing of all of us together?" Ethan added. Emily, always the practical one, thought for a moment. "What if we baked cookies? Mum always says that food is a way to say thank you." The three exchanged glances, smiles spreading across their faces. It was perfect. Meanwhile, at the police station, Robert Harris sat before Detective Jessica, his lawyer beside him. "Mr. Harris," Jessica began, "can you tell us about your relationship with Michael Thornton and Thornton Enterprises?" Robert smiled, charming and confident. "Of course, Detective. Michael and I were partners for years. We built the company together, but we had disagreements about the direction it should take." "What kind of disagreements?" Jessica pressed. Robert hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Let's just say I had a more aggressive vision for the company's growth. Michael preferred a more conservative approach." Jessica took notes, her eyes never leaving Robert's face. "And after you left the company, I started my own ventures. I haven't been involved with Thornton Enterprises for years," Robert replied smoothly. Jessica nodded, though her instincts told her there was more to this story. "Thank you, Mr. Harris. We'll be in touch if we need more information." After Robert left, Jessica leaned back in her chair, thoughtful. Something in his story didn't fit, but she couldn't pinpoint exactly what yet. Back at Thornton Enterprises, Michael was in a meeting with his executive team. News of the investigation had spread, and the tension in the room was palpable. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael began, his voice firm, "I understand you are all concerned, but I want to assure you that our company has always operated within the law." One of the executives cleared his throat nervously. "Mr. Thornton, with all due respect, maybe we should consider adjusting some of our practices, just to be safe." Michael frowned. "What practices exactly would you suggest we adjust?" The ensuing silence was deafening. Michael looked around the table, seeing faces that avoided his gaze. For the first time, he wondered if he really knew his own company. "I want a full audit," he announced, surprising everyone. "Every department, every transaction. If there's something we need to fix, we'll do it openly and honestly." As the meeting dispersed, Michael remained alone in the conference room. His eyes wandered to the window, taking in the city below. Somewhere out there, he thought, were the triplets and their mother, real people, affected by the decisions made in these luxurious boardrooms. A resolve grew within him. Regardless of the investigation's outcome, it was time for a change. Thornton Enterprises would be more than just a corporation. It would be a force for good. As the sun set over the city, the lives of Michael, Sarah, the triplets, Jessica, and Robert continued to intertwine in ways none of them could predict. Secrets from the past were emerging, decisions were being made, and the future was taking shape. What none of them knew was that their actions in the coming days would shape not only their own lives, but the destiny of the entire community. The journey that began with a simple act of kindness in the square was about to transform into something far greater than any of them could imagine. Detective Jessica Reeves's office was an organized chaos of papers, files, and sticky notes. She had spent the entire night poring over Thornton Enterprises' financial records, and what she found made her more intrigued by the moment. "This makes no sense," she murmured to herself, frowning at a particularly complex spreadsheet. The discrepancies were subtle but undeniable. Large sums of money vanished from the company's accounts, only to reappear in charitable institutions days later. But the path between these 2 points was a maze of obscure transactions and shell companies. Jessica leaned back in her chair, rubbing her tired eyes. Why would Michael Thornton, a known philanthropist, make his donations so complicated? Unless he's hiding something bigger, she concluded, a new theory forming in her mind. Meanwhile, at the Thornton mansion, Michael paced his office, the phone pressed to his ear. "No, I can't give a statement now," he said, frustration clear in his voice. "My lawyers advised, yes, I understand the shareholders' concern, but—" He hung up with a heavy sigh, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. News of the investigation had leaked to the press, and now he was being bombarded from all sides. Reporters, shareholders, business partners. Michael approached the window, looking out at his immaculate gardens. All this wealth, and for what? In that moment, he felt more alone than ever. His thoughts drifted back to the triplets in the square, the genuine joy on their faces when they received the chocolates. That moment of human connection now seemed distant, like a fleeting dream. "Maybe," he murmured to himself, "maybe it's time to do more." At Bella's boutique, Sarah was busy organizing a new shipment of clothes when Clara, the owner, approached with an excited smile. "Sarah, I have a proposal for you," she began. "The store was invited to participate in a charity event at the town square this weekend. I'd like you to lead our team there." Sarah's eyes widened. "Me? But I've only been here a few days." Clara laughed. "And you've already proven more capable than some employees I've had for years. So, what do you say?" Sarah hesitated only a moment before nodding enthusiastically. "It would be an honor. Thank you for your trust." Meanwhile, at school, Emily, Ethan, and Olivia huddled in a corner of the playground during recess, heads together in conspiracy. "So it's settled," Emily whispered. "Saturday, we go to the square." Ethan nodded vigorously. "Yes, we have to find Santa Claus again." Olivia, always the cautious one, bit her lip. "But what if Mom finds out?" She won't, Emily assured. We'll say we're playing with Lily next door. It'll be quick, I promise. The three exchanged determined looks, sealing their secret pact with a triple handshake. At the police station, Robert Harris shifted uncomfortably in his chair, facing another round of Jessica's questions. Mr. Harris, Jessica began, her voice calm but incisive, we've noticed some inconsistencies in your previous statements. Robert swallowed hard, his confident smile faltering for a moment. Inconsistencies? I'm not sure what you mean, Detective. Jessica slid a folder across the table. These are records of meetings between you and Michael Thornton in recent months. Meetings you claimed never took place. Robert's face visibly paled. There must be some mistake. Maybe I got the dates mixed up. Jessica leaned forward, her eyes locked on his. Mr. Harris, I suggest you think very carefully about your next words. Lying to the police is a serious crime. Robert ran his hand through his hair, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. So I'd like to speak with my lawyer, please. Jessica nodded, leaning back. Of course. But know this, Mr. Harris, we're closing in on the truth. It's only a matter of time. Back at Thornton Enterprises, Michael was in a meeting with his corporate social responsibility team. I want to expand our programs for underprivileged children, he announced, surprising everyone. Double the budget? No, triple it. One of the executives cleared his throat nervously. Mr. Thornton, with all due respect, given the current climate and the ongoing investigation, Michael raised his hand, cutting him off. It's precisely because of the current climate that we need to do this. Our company isn't just about profits, it's about making a real difference in people's lives. As the meeting continued, Michael's mind wandered. He saw the faces of the triplets and imagined children like them all over the city in need of help, of hope. An idea began forming in his mind, an idea that could change everything. That evening, in her small apartment, Sarah helped the triplets with their homework, her own exhaustion momentarily forgotten in the face of their excitement. Mom, Olivia said suddenly, do you think we'll see Santa Claus again? Sarah hesitated, uncertain how to answer. Well, sweetie, Christmas is still far off and... But what if he's at the square again? Ethan interrupted, exchanging a quick glance with his siblings. Sarah frowned, noticing something in their tone. Kids, what are you planning? The triplets exchanged guilty looks before Emily finally confessed their plan to go to the square on Saturday. Sarah sighed, torn between worry and understanding. I see you want to say thank you, but we can't just expect him to appear like magic. Seeing the disappointed faces of her children, Sarah had an idea. How about this? On Saturday, I'll be working at a charity event in the square. You can come with me and who knows, maybe we'll have a chance to do something good for others, just like Santa Claus did for us. The triplets' eyes lit up at the suggestion, and soon they were making enthusiastic plans for the weekend. As the city fell asleep, the lives of Michael, Sarah, the triplets, Jessica, and Robert continued to intertwine in an ever more complex web. Challenges grew, secrets threatened to come to light, and the decisions made now would shape everyone's future. What none of them knew was that the charity event on Saturday would be the catalyst for a series of events that would change their lives forever. Fate was guiding them toward a meeting none could foresee, one that would test their values, their compassion, and their ability to forgive and start anew. As the night wore on, each of them prepared, consciously or not, for what was to come. Michael, determined to use his wealth for a greater good. Sarah, balancing hope and caution. The triplets, eager for another magical encounter. Jessica, tireless in her pursuit of truth. And Robert, nervous, feeling the net tighten. Saturday promised to be a day none of them would soon forget. The Saturday morning sun bathed the town square in light, illuminating the colorful booths and festive banners of the charity event. Sarah arrived early, triplets in tow, all excited to start the day. Remember, kids, Sarah said as she adjusted her Bella's boutique name tag, we're here to help others today. Behave and stay close, okay? Emily, Ethan, and Olivia nodded solemnly, though their eyes gleamed with barely contained excitement. For them, The square wasn't just the site of a charity event, it was the stage of their magical encounter with Santa Claus. As the morning progressed, the square came to life. Families arrived, volunteers rushed about, and the air filled with the smell of food and the sound of laughter and music. Sarah was in her element, organizing Bella's boutique's booth with efficiency and charm. She smiled at customers, helped them choose clothes, and occasionally glanced over to check on the triplets, who were assisting at a nearby game booth. Across town, Michael Thornton straightened his tie, looking at himself in the mirror with a tired sigh. The past weeks of investigation had taken their toll, leaving him with dark circles and a heavy, invisible burden on his shoulders. "Just a quick walk," he murmured to himself. "Some fresh air will help." Without overthinking, his steps led him toward the town square. As he approached, he remembered the charity event. For a moment, he considered turning back, but something compelled him to continue. Walking among the booths, Michael felt a strange mixture of anonymity and connection. Here, he wasn't the magnate under investigation, but just another face in the crowd. He watched families laughing together, volunteers working hard, children running and playing. That's when he saw them, the triplets. They were helping out at a ring toss booth, their faces lit with smiles as they handed out prizes to other kids. Michael's heart began to race. Should he leave? But before he could decide, Olivia looked his way, her eyes widening in recognition. "Toy, it's him," she whispered urgently to Emily and Ethan. "Santa Claus." The three looked at one another, excitement palpable. Without a second thought, they ran toward Michael. "Mister! Mister!" they called in unison. Michael froze, taken by surprise. The children stopped in front of him, gazing up at him with a mix of admiration and nervousness. "Hello," Michael said softly, crouching down to their level. You recognized me?" Emily nodded vigorously. "You're the Santa Claus who gave us chocolates. We never forgot." Michael felt a lump in his throat. I'm glad you enjoyed them. We wanted to thank you," Ethan said shyly. "It was the best present ever." At that moment, Sarah noticed the triplets missing from their spot and frantically scanned the crowd. Her eyes settled on the scene a few yards away, her children talking to a well-dressed stranger. Immediately, she dropped what she was doing and ran toward them. "Emily! Ethan! Olivia!" she called, her voice tight with concern. The children and Michael looked up, surprised. Sarah arrived, placing herself protectively in front of the triplets. "Can I help you?" she asked Michael, her voice a mixture of forced courtesy and distrust. Michael stood, suddenly nervous. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to worry you. Your children, they recognized me from a previous encounter." Sarah frowned, confused, until realization struck. "Wait, you're—" Before Michael could answer, a familiar voice called his name. They all turned to see Clara, the owner of Bella's boutique, approaching with a radiant smile. "Michael Thornton. What a wonderful surprise to see you here," Clara exclaimed, extending her hand to greet him. Sarah stood stunned, the pieces falling into place in her mind. The mysterious Santa Claus was actually the famous and now controversial businessman Michael Thornton. Clara, sensing the tension, quickly made the introductions. "Sarah, this is Michael Thornton, one of our biggest donors. Michael, this is Sarah, our newest and most promising employee." Michael and Sarah shook hands hesitantly, both feeling a strange connection they couldn't quite explain. "It's a pleasure to officially meet you, Sarah," Michael said softly. "Your children are truly special." Sarah, still reeling, only managed to nod. "Thank you. They've talked a lot about the Santa Claus they met." The triplets, oblivious to the adults' tension, bounced with excitement. "Mum, can we show Mr. Thornton our booth?" Olivia asked. As the group moved toward the game booth, across-town Detective Jessica Reeves sat in her office, surrounded by piles of documents. Her attention was focused on a series of emails exchanged between Robert Harris and a group of foreign investors. "What were you planning, Robert?" she murmured, eyes narrowing as she deciphered the cryptic content of the messages. Jessica picked up the phone, dialing quickly. This is Detective Reeves. I need a warrant for Robert Harris's personal bank records. Yes, it's urgent. Back at the square, Michael watched the triplets excitedly explain how their game worked. His heart warmed at their enthusiasm, reminding him why he had begun his secret philanthropy in the first place. Sarah, for her part, observed Michael with a mix of curiosity and caution. She had heard rumors about the investigation, but the man before her seemed genuinely kind and caring. "Mr. Thornton," she began hesitantly, "I wanted to thank you. What you did, it meant a lot to my children." Michael smiled gently. "Please, call me Michael, and there's no need to thank me." Seeing their joy was more than enough reward. As they spoke, Michael felt something shift inside him. The charity event, the children's excitement, the volunteers' dedication, all of it made him question the direction his life and his company had taken. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I think it's time for a change at Thornton Enterprises." Sarah tilted her head, curious. "What kind of change?" Michael looked around the square, a new light in his eyes. "A change of focus. Using our resources not just to generate profit, but to make a real difference in people's lives. Like this event, but on a much larger scale." As the day wore on, Michael found himself increasingly involved in the event, helping at the booths, talking to people, feeling a connection to the community he hadn't experienced in a long time. When the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Michael said goodbye to Sarah and the triplets, promising to stay in touch. As he walked home, his mind buzzed with ideas and possibilities. What had started as a simple walk to clear his head had turned into a turning point. Michael knew that, regardless of the investigation's outcome, his life and his company would never be the same. Fate had orchestrated a series of unexpected encounters that day, intertwining the lives of Michael, Sarah, the triplets, and, indirectly, Jessica and Robert. The repercussions of these encounters were just beginning to unfold, promising profound changes for everyone involved. As night fell over the city, each of them reflected on the day's events, unaware of how their lives were about to be transformed in unimaginable ways. Dinner at the triplets' home was filled with excitement. Emily, Ethan, and Olivia could barely contain themselves, eager to share every detail of their encounter at the square. "Mom, you won't believe it," Emily exclaimed, her eyes shining. "Santa Claus. He's real." Sarah smiled, puzzled. "What are you talking about, sweetheart?" Ethan cut in, almost knocking over his glass of milk in his haste. "The man who gave us chocolates at Christmas, we saw him today." "And not only that," Olivia added, her voice a reverent whisper, "he's Mr. Thornton, the millionaire." Sarah froze, her spoon halfway to her mouth. "Michael Thornton. Are you sure?" The triplets nodded vigorously, launching into a detailed account of the encounter. Sarah listened, stunned, as the pieces fell into place. The mysterious Santa Claus, who had brought her children so much joy, was actually one of the city's most powerful and now embattled men. "He was so kind, Mom," Emily said softly, "just like the first time." Sarah felt a lump in her throat, a flood of conflicting emotions washing over her. Gratitude for Michael's kindness, worry about the implications of the ongoing investigation, and a hint of something else she couldn't quite identify. Meanwhile, across town, Detective Jessica Reeves was buried under a mountain of documents in her office. Her eyes burned with fatigue, but she couldn't stop now, not when she was so close to a crucial discovery. "This can't be right," she murmured, frowning at a series of financial reports. The last few hours had completely overturned her investigation. What started as a seemingly simple corporate fraud case had become something far more complex. Jessica picked up her phone, dialing quickly. "Chief, we have a problem. The evidence, it doesn't point to Thornton. In fact, it suggests he might be innocent." There was a tense pause on the other end of the line. "Explain," came the gruff response. "The money diversions, the suspicious transactions, they all lead to someone else. Robert Harris." The name hung in the air, heavy with implications. Robert Harris, Michael's former partner, who had been so cooperative at the start of the investigation. Jessica hung up, her mind racing. She grabbed another file, this one containing the records of Michael's anonymous donations. His generosity was impressive, and now, in light of the new evidence, it seemed even more significant. At the Thornton mansion, Michael was in his office, phone pressed to his ear. "No, we can't suspend the foundation's operations," he said firmly. "Those children depend on us. Find a way to keep everything running, no matter the cost." He hung up with a heavy sigh, tension evident in his shoulders. The investigation was affecting every aspect of his life, including his philanthropic work. Michael stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city sparkled under the night sky. Somewhere out there, he thought, Sarah and the triplets were living their lives, unaware of the whirlwind surrounding him. The thought made him smile, reminding him of the charity event. The joy on the children's faces, the volunteers' dedication, the feeling of making a real difference. An idea began to form in his mind. What if he could do more? Not just anonymous donations or small acts of kindness, but something truly transformative. Michael turned back to his desk, picking up a notepad. His hands moved quickly as he sketched out an ambitious plan, a large-scale initiative to help underprivileged children throughout the city. Schools, community centers, meal programs, scholarships. The list grew as his vision expanded. "This," he murmured to himself, "this is what really matters." While Michael planned, Robert Harris sat in his own office, a half-empty whiskey bottle before him. His phone rang, making him jump. "Harris," he answered, his voice tense. "Mr. Harris, this is the police station. We'd like to schedule another interview for tomorrow." Robert felt his stomach drop. "Of course," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'll be there." As soon as he hung up, Robert poured himself another drink, his hands trembling slightly. He knew the walls were closing in. It was only a matter of time before the truth came out. Back at Sarah's home, the triplets had finally fallen asleep, exhausted but happy after their exciting day. Sarah sat in the living room, a cup of tea in her hands, reflecting on everything that had happened. Her phone vibrated, indicating a new message. It was from Clara, her boss at Bella's boutique. "Sarah, great job today. Michael Thornton was very impressed. He mentioned something about expanding our partnership with his foundation. It seems you made a wonderful impression." Sarah reread the message several times, a mix of emotions washing over her. Pride at being recognized for her work, gratitude for the opportunity, and yet a twinge of worry. With all the news about the investigation, was it safe to get more involved with Michael Thornton? She looked toward the children's room, recalling the joy on their faces when they saw Michael. To them, he wasn't a millionaire under investigation, but the kind man who had brought a bit of magic into their lives. Sarah made a decision. She would give Michael the benefit of the doubt. After all, he had shown nothing but kindness to her family. As the night went on, the lives of Michael and Sarah, the triplets, Jessica and Robert, continued to intertwine in unpredictable ways. Surprising revelations had been made, and more were yet to come. Fate had cast its dice, and the pieces were in motion. The next chapter of this story promised to be even more astonishing. With truths revealed, alliances formed, and lives transformed in ways no one could foresee. Detective Jessica Reeves's office was engulfed in a tense silence, broken only by the occasional sound of papers being turned. She had spent the entire night poring over a new set of documents, and what she had discovered left her breathless. "My goodness," she murmured, eyes wide as she focused on a particular set of files. "Robert, what did you do?" In front of her lay irrefutable evidence of an elaborate web of fraud and embezzlement, all pointing directly to Robert Harris. Suspicious bank transfers, forged contracts, incriminating emails. They formed a damning puzzle. Jessica picked up the phone, her hand trembling slightly with the adrenaline of discovery. "Chief, I need a warrant for Robert Harris's arrest, immediately." On the other side of town, Sarah paced nervously in her small living room. After a restless night, she had come to a decision. She would seek out Michael Thornton in person. "Kids," she called, "get dressed. We're going on a special visit." The triplets ran into the room, their faces lit with excitement. "Are we going to see Mr. Thornton?" Ethan asked hopefully. Sarah nodded, a nervous smile on her lips. "Yes, we'll thank him in person for his kindness." What Sarah didn't know was that the triplets had secretly planned their own surprise. During the night, they had worked on a large thank you card decorated with colorful drawings and heartfelt messages. Meanwhile, at the Thornton mansion, Michael was in his office, reviewing old company documents. Something bothered him, a persistent feeling that he was missing something important. Then he noticed a discrepancy in a contract signed years ago. The signature, it wasn't his. Michael frowned, a knot forming in his stomach. "Robert," he whispered, realization hitting him like a punch. Memories of strange meetings, questionable decisions, and suspicious behavior from his former partner flooded his mind. Michael picked up the phone, his hand shaking slightly. "Mr. Johnson, I need you to review all contracts signed in the last 5 years. Look for anything suspicious, especially related to Robert Harris." As Michael wrestled with the possibility of his old friend's betrayal, the town buzzed with rumors and speculation. On the streets, in cafes, and on social media. Michael Thornton's name was on everyone's lips. "I always knew there was something off about that Thornton," a man remarked in a local pub. "So nobody gets that rich by being honest." "But did you see what he did for the children's hospital last year?" a woman countered. "He saved the pediatric oncology department with his donations." Opinions were divided, with some viewing Michael as a white-collar criminal, and others defending him as a misunderstood philanthropist. Amid the turmoil, Michael took refuge in his secret project. He spent hours refining his plans for the new foundation, envisioning a future where no child in the town would go hungry or be denied an education. "Let's call it Project New Dawn," he murmured to himself, writing the name at the top of his plan. "A fresh start for all of us." The sound of the doorbell interrupted his thoughts. Michael frowned, not expecting visitors. He went downstairs, curious, and opened the door. His heart nearly stopped. Standing on his porch were Sarah and the triplets. "Mr. Thornton," Sarah began, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm sorry to drop by unannounced. We wanted to thank you personally." Michael was speechless for a moment, moved by their unexpected presence. "Please, come in," he finally managed, opening the door wider. The triplets could barely contain their excitement. As soon as they entered, they pulled out the large card they had made. "Look, Mr. Thornton," Olivia exclaimed. "We made this for you." Michael took the card, his heart filling with an emotion he hadn't felt in years. The colorful drawings, the sincere messages in childish handwriting, they touched him deeply. This is incredible," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, kids." Sarah watched the scene, surprised by Michael's evident emotion. This was not the powerful businessman she had expected, but a man genuinely moved by a simple act of gratitude. "Mr. Thornton," she began, "I know there's a lot going on right now, but I want you to know how much your kindness meant to us." Michael looked at Sarah, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. In that moment, all the worries about the investigation, the suspicions about Robert, the town's rumors, they all seemed to fade away. "Sarah," he said softly, "please call me Michael, and know that meeting your family has brought more light into my life than you can imagine." As they talked, Michael felt renewed determination growing within him. Regardless of what happened with the investigation, he knew his true purpose lay here, in this moment, helping people like Sarah and her children. Project New Dawn would not just be a foundation. It would be his legacy, his way of ensuring that more families could experience moments of joy and hope like this one. Meanwhile, across town, Robert Harris was caught off guard by several police cars arriving at his residence. Detective Jessica Reeves stepped out of the first vehicle, an arrest warrant in hand. The truth was finally emerging, and the lives of everyone involved were about to change drastically. The next chapter of this story promised shocking revelations, emotional confrontations, and perhaps the start of a journey of redemption and renewal for the entire community. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the immaculate lawn of the Thornton mansion when the police cars arrived. Michael, who had been reviewing documents in his office, felt his heart quicken at the sound of the insistent doorbell. Opening the door, he found Detective Jessica Reeves, her face set in professional determination. "Mr. Thornton," she began, "we need to talk. It's about Robert Harris." Before Michael could respond, another car pulled up abruptly in the driveway. Robert Harris stepped out, pale and sweating. "Michael!" he shouted, his voice trembling. "Don't believe her! I can explain everything." The tension in the air was palpable. Michael looked from Jessica to Robert, feeling that he was about to learn truths that would change everything. "Come in," he finally said, his voice low and controlled. In the office, Jessica spread a series of documents across Michael's desk. "Mr. Thornton, we have concrete evidence that Robert Harris was involved in an elaborate network of fraud and embezzlement." Michael examined the papers, his face growing paler as he absorbed the information. Forged contracts, suspicious bank transfers, incriminating emails all pointed to large-scale betrayal. "Robert," Michael turned to his former partner, voice trembling with restrained emotion. "How could you?" Cornered, Robert let his mask of innocence slip. "You don't understand, Michael. I did this for us, for the company." "For us," Michael exploded, years of trust crumbling before his eyes. "You betrayed everything we built together." While the confrontation unfolded, Sarah and the Triplets arrived at the mansion. She had decided to make another surprise visit to thank Michael once more for his kindness. "Remember, kids," she said as they approached the door, "be polite and—" Her words were cut short by the sight of the police cars. Sarah hesitated, a knot forming in her stomach. Inside the office, the argument raged on. Robert, desperate, tried to justify his actions. "The company was stagnant, Michael. We needed capital to expand, to compete." "At the cost of our integrity," Michael retorted, his voice heavy with disappointment. That's when the doorbell rang. Everyone froze, looking toward the office door. "I'll get it," said Jessica, her hand instinctively moving toward her holster. Opening the door, she found Sarah and the Triplets, their faces a mix of confusion and apprehension. "I'm sorry," Sarah stammered. "We didn't know. Maybe we should come back another day." But the Triplets, too excited to notice the tension, ran inside. "Mr. Thornton," Olivia exclaimed, holding up a large, colorful card. "We made this for you." The scene that followed was surreal. Michael, still processing Robert's betrayal, was confronted with the pure innocence and gratitude of the Triplets. The contrast could not have been starker. "Kids," he said softly, kneeling down to their level, "this is wonderful. Thank you." Robert watched the scene, his face a mask of confusion and shame. "Michael, what is this? Who are these people?" Michael stood up, a new determination in his eyes. "This, Robert, is what truly matters, not profits or expansions, but people, lives we can touch and improve." Turning to Jessica, Michael continued, "Detective, I'm ready to cooperate fully with the investigation. But first, there's something I need to share with all of you." With a gesture, he invited Sarah and the children into the office. The atmosphere was tense, but Michael seemed strangely calm. "In the past few days, I've been working on a project," he began. "A foundation dedicated to helping underprivileged children in our town. Schools, meal programs, and scholarships, everything to ensure every child has a fair chance." Sarah gasped, her eyes filling with tears. The Triplets, though not fully understanding, smiled brightly. "That's why," Michael continued, looking directly at Robert, "your betrayal hurt so much. Not because of the money, but because of the good we could have done with it." Robert lowered his head, finally grasping the magnitude of his wrongdoings. Jessica, watching all this, felt a new respect for Michael. "Mr. Thornton, your cooperation will be crucial to our investigation. As for Mr. Harris," she turned to Robert, her tone professional but not without compassion. "Robert Harris, you are under arrest for corporate fraud and embezzlement." As Jessica read Robert his rights, Michael approached Sarah and the triplets. "I'm sorry you had to witness this," he said softly, "but maybe it's fitting. You reminded me what truly matters, and now with this foundation I hope to give back." Sarah, still processing all she had witnessed, found her voice. "Michael, this is incredible. How can we help?" Michael smiled, the first genuine smile he had managed in days. "Actually, Sarah, I was hoping you might join the Foundation's team. Your perspective would be invaluable." As Robert was taken away and the details of the investigation were discussed, a new energy filled the room. Project New Dawn, born of personal and corporate tragedy, promised to be the start of a new era for the town. Michael, looking at the hopeful faces around him, felt for the first time in a long while that he was on the right path. The road ahead would be difficult, but with allies like Sarah, Jessica, and the pure purpose represented by the triplets, he knew they could make a difference. The confrontation was over, but the true journey was only beginning. The silence in the interrogation room was palpable. Robert Harris, shoulders slumped and dark circles under his eyes, stared at his cuffed hands. Detective Jessica Reeves watched him closely, her notepad at the ready. "Mr. Harris," she began, "are you ready to make your statement?" Robert raised his eyes, defeated. "Yes," he murmured. "I'll confess everything." In the hours that followed, Robert meticulously detailed every fraud, every embezzlement, every lie. He described how, driven by greed and ambition, he had manipulated contracts, forged signatures, and funneled funds into offshore accounts. Michael knew nothing about this, Robert concluded, his voice choked with emotion. "I deceived him, just like everyone else." Jessica listened intently, taking detailed notes. While Robert's confession seemed to completely exonerate Michael, something still bothered her. Small inconsistencies, details that didn't quite fit. "Thank you, Mr. Harris," she said at last. "Your cooperation will be taken into account." Exiting the room, Jessica met her partner in the hallway. "Something's not right," she murmured. "Keep investigating. I want every detail checked twice." Meanwhile, back at the Thornton mansion, Michael was meeting with Sarah and the triplets, explaining his plans for the new foundation. "Project New Dawn will be more than just donations," Michael explained, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Sarah, we want to create real opportunities, change lives." Sarah listened, fascinated, while the triplets exchanged excited glances. "Mr. Thornton," Emily asked timidly, "can we help too?" Michael smiled, touched by their offer. "Of course you can. In fact, I was hoping you could be our very first junior ambassadors. How does that sound?" The triplets' eyes went wide with excitement. "Yes!" they shouted in unison. Sarah laughed, moved by her children's joy and by Michael's generosity. "This is amazing, Michael. But how can I help?" "Sarah," Michael said seriously, "I'd like you to lead our community programs. Your experience and perspective will be invaluable." Sarah was speechless, overwhelmed by the opportunity. After a moment, she nodded, tears of gratitude in her eyes. It would be an honor. As news of Robert's confession and Michael's plans for the foundation spread, the town buzzed with mixed reactions. In the local cafe, residents discussed the situation animatedly. "I always knew Thornton was innocent," declared an elderly man. "A man who donates so much to charity can't be a criminal." "But what if it's all just a front?" a skeptical woman countered. "Big businessmen always have tricks up their sleeve." Yet, as more details of Project New Dawn emerged, public opinion began to shift. The idea of a foundation dedicated to helping underprivileged children, led by someone who had undergone such a public ordeal, captured the community's imagination and heart. At Thornton Enterprises, Michael called an emergency meeting with his executive team. "Starting today," he announced, "our #1 priority will be integrating Project New Dawn into all our operations. I want 30% of our profits directed to the foundation." Murmurs of surprise spread among the executives, with some worried expressions. "Mr. Thornton," one of them spoke up, "this is a drastic change." "The shareholders," Michael cut him off with a gesture. The shareholders will understand that this isn't just the right thing to do, but also a smart business strategy. Social responsibility isn't just a buzzword, it's the future. As the meeting continued, Michael felt new energy flowing through him. For the first time in years, he felt truly in control of his destiny and doing something meaningful. Back at Sarah's house, the triplets were on a mission. They had turned the living room into an impromptu office, with drawings, lists, and plans scattered everywhere. "We need posters," Ethan declared, drawing furiously. "And we can have a lemonade stand to raise money," Olivia suggested. Emily, always the practical one, was making a list of all the children they knew who might benefit from the foundation. Sarah watched with a mix of pride and emotion. Seeing her children so dedicated to helping others, inspired by Michael's example, was more than she could have hoped for. That night, as the town prepared for sleep, the gears of change were already turning. In his office, Michael finalized the legal details of the foundation. At her small kitchen table, Sarah sketched out ideas for community programs. In their beds, the triplets dreamed of all the lives they would help improve. And in her station office, Jessica Reeves worked late into the night, determined to uncover every nuance of the truth, wherever it led her. Project New Dawn was about to become a reality, promising not only to transform the lives of underprivileged children, but to redefine the meaning of corporate success and social responsibility. The road ahead would be challenging, but with the unlikely union of a redeemed millionaire, a determined mother, 3 enthusiastic children, and a hopeful community, the future seemed brighter than ever. Detective Jessica Reeves's office was steeped in tense silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of paperwork. For weeks she'd followed a seemingly insignificant lead, a detail that didn't fit the main Thornton narrative. Now in front of her lay the final piece of the puzzle. "My God," she murmured, eyes wide as she studied an old police report. So it wasn't an accident. The report detailed the tragic car crash that claimed the lives of Michael Thornton's wife and daughter 7 years ago. But the notes of a now retired detective, buried deep in the file, suggested something far more sinister. Jessica picked up the phone, hands trembling slightly. "Chief, I need a team. We're reopening the old Thornton case." Hours later, Michael Thornton sat in his mansion's office, reviewing plans for Project New Dawn, when the doorbell rang. Opening the door, he found Jessica, her face grave. "Mr. Thornton," she began, her voice gentle yet firm. "We need to talk. It's about the accident." Michael's heart skipped a beat. "The accident?" But that was years ago. Jessica entered, guiding Michael back to his office. Carefully, she laid out her findings. The supposed accident had been meticulously planned. The car's brakes had been tampered with. The truck driver who collided with them bribed. "Who?" Michael asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Who would do this?" Jessica hesitated before answering. "Evidence points to a group of business competitors. They wanted to destabilize you and Thornton Enterprises." Michael felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. Memories of his wife's smile and his daughter's laughter flooded his mind. The grief he had struggled to process surged forward with renewed force. "There's more," Jessica added softly. "The embezzlement in the company started right after the incident. We believe the same individuals may be involved." Michael stood abruptly, walking to the window. His entire world was crumbling once again. The loss of his family, once accepted as a terrible tragedy, now revealed itself as a calculated act of cruelty. "Why?" he asked, voice choked with emotion. "Why now, after all these years?" Jessica approached, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes, Mr. Thornton, the truth takes time to surface, but it always does, eventually." At that moment, the office door opened. Sarah entered, followed by the triplets, all carrying colorful posters for a Project New Dawn. Seeing the scene before them, Sarah immediately sensed something was wrong. "Michael," she called gently. "What happened?" Michael turned, silent tears running down his face. In a few minutes, He shared the shocking revelations with Sarah, while the triplets listened quietly, their young faces showing confusion and concern. Horrified by the news, Sarah wrapped Michael in a tight hug. "Oh, Michael," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, so very sorry." The triplets, moved by a compassion beyond their years, joined the hug. Emily, Ethan, and Olivia, who knew Michael as the kind-hearted Santa Claus, now saw him as someone in desperate need of comfort. "Mr. Thornton," Olivia said softly, "when we're sad, Mom always hugs us and says everything will be okay." Touched by the innocence and kindness of the children, something inside Michael broke. Years of repressed pain and unresolved grief poured out. He cried openly, held by Sarah and the triplets, while Jessica stood by in respectful silence. After a few minutes, Michael composed himself, wiping away tears. He looked at the children, at Sarah, then at Jessica. "What happens now?" he asked, voice rough but determined. Jessica straightened her shoulders. "Fasanaki, Mr. Thornton. We go after those responsible. All of them." Michael nodded slowly. Then, to everyone's surprise, he walked to his desk and picked up the Project New Dawn plans. "And this," he said, lifting the papers, "this continues more than ever." Sarah looked at him, confused. "Michael, are you sure? After all this?" Michael gently interrupted. "Sarah, I lost my family to the greed and cruelty of others. I can't bring them back, but I can honor their memory by helping other families and children. Project New Dawn isn't just a name. It's a promise that something good can be born from even the greatest tragedy." The triplets, understanding the importance of the moment, moved closer to Michael. "Dare will help," Emily declared firmly. "We'll make this the best project ever." Ethan and Olivia nodded vigorously, determination on their faces. Jessica, watching this scene, felt a wave of admiration for Michael and this improbable family that had formed around him. "Mr. Thornton," she said, "count me in. Whatever you need." In the hours that followed, news of these revelations spread through town like wildfire. Michael Thornton's story, once seen as the downfall of a corrupt magnate, was retold as a tragedy, followed by an incredible tale of resilience and compassion. The community, shocked by the truth of the accident, quickly rallied in support of Michael and her Project New Dawn. Offers of help, donations, and volunteers poured into Thornton Enterprises. In the town square, where it all began with a simple act of kindness, residents spontaneously gathered, lighting candles in memory of Michael's lost family and in solidarity with his new mission. Michael, watching news coverage of the community's reaction, felt an overwhelming mix of emotions. The pain of his loss, reignited by the revelations, was immense. But by his side were Sarah, the triplets, Jessica, and now it seemed the entire town. "Elizabeth, Sophie," he murmured softly, looking at a photo of his wife and daughter. "I hope you're proud. I will make this count, I promise." As night fell over the town, a new determination took shape. Project New Dawn was no longer just a charity initiative. It had become a symbol of hope, of overcoming adversity, and of a community united against injustice and in favor of compassion. Michael knew the road ahead would be tough. There would be more revelations, more pain, more challenges. But looking at Sarah, the triplets, and the determined faces around him, he knew he was no longer alone. The truth had emerged, shocking and painful, but with it came the chance for healing, for justice, and for a new beginning. The true rebirth was only just beginning. The rising sun bathed the town in golden light, symbolizing the start of a new era. In the Thornton mansion, Michael stood before his office window, holding the official documents that would bring a Project New Dawn to life. With a deep sigh, he turned to the room, where Sarah, the triplets, Jessica, and a small team of lawyers and advisors waited. "It's time," Michael said, voice filled with emotion and determination. "Let's make this happen." With a steady hand, he signed the documents, officially creating the New Dawn Foundation. The scratch of pen on paper seemed to echo through the room, marking the start of something truly transformative. Sarah, seated beside the triplets, watched with tear-filled eyes. In the last few weeks, her life had changed dramatically. Once a struggling single mother, she now stood at the center of an initiative poised to change countless lives. "Sarah," Michael called, interrupting her thoughts, "I'd like you to lead our family support programs. Your experience as a mother and your unique perspective will be invaluable." Sarah was speechless for a moment, overwhelmed by the responsibility and trust placed in her. I'd be honored, Michael. Thank you." The triplets, unable to contain their excitement, started hopping and cheering. "Mum's going to be the boss," Ethan exclaimed. Michael smiled at the children. "Actually, you three have a very important role to play as well." Emily, Ethan, and Olivia froze, eyes wide with curiosity. "You will be our inspiration," Michael continued. "Many of our projects will be based on the ideas and needs you show us. You'll be the eyes and ears of the New Dawn Foundation in the world of children." The triplets exchanged amazed looks, then beamed broadly, fully grasping the importance of their new mission. Jessica, who had been watching the scene with a smile, stepped forward. "Mr. Thornton, I'd like to offer my services to ensure the Foundation operates with complete transparency. My investigative experience can help establish compliance protocols and prevent any kind of misconduct." Michael nodded gratefully. "We'd be honored to have you on board, Jessica. Your integrity is exactly what we need." As the group discussed next steps, the office door opened slowly. Robert Harris entered, his face a mixture of shame and resolve. A tense silence fell over the room. Michael faced his former partner, a flurry of emotions crossing his face. "Michael," Robert began, voice trembling, "I know I have no right to be here. But I want to help. Use my expertise for something good, to try and mend the harm I caused." Michael remained silent for a long moment, considering. Finally he spoke. "Robert, you betrayed my trust and caused immense harm. But this project is about second chances and redemption. If you're truly committed to doing the right thing, there's a place for you here." Robert nodded, tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Michael. I won't let you down again." As news of the foundation spread through the town, a wave of support began to form. Volunteers of all ages and backgrounds came forward, offering their talents and time. In the central square, where it all began with a simple act of kindness, a crowd gathered. Michael, Sarah, and the triplets stepped onto a small improvised stage to address the community. "Fellow citizens," Michael began, his voice carrying through the square, "today marks the start of a new era for our town. The New Dawn Foundation isn't just mine or my team's, it's ours, all of ours." The crowd applauded, many with tears in their eyes. "And to symbolize this new beginning," Michael continued, "we plan to transform this square into a safe, educational space for our children, a place of learning, play, and growth." Volunteer architects had already begun drafting plans for the transformed square. Outdoor reading areas, an inclusive playground, community gardens, and a small amphitheater for educational performances were just a few of the proposed ideas. Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling with emotion. "As a mother, I know the challenges many families face. The New Dawn Foundation is here to support, to educate, and to offer hope. Together, we can create a bright future for all our children." The triplets, wearing t-shirts with the Foundation's logo, waved enthusiastically at the crowd. Their energy and innocence were contagious, reminding everyone of the project's true purpose. In the following days, the town seemed transformed. Local businesses donated funds and sponsorships. Schools organized fundraising events. Artists volunteered to paint inspiring murals around town. At the Foundation's headquarters, an old mansion donated by Michael, activity was frantic. Sarah coordinated family support programs, using her personal experience to identify the community's most urgent needs. The triplets were constant presences, their ideas and observations often leading to valuable insights. It was Olivia who suggested a Reading Buddies program where older children read to younger ones. Ethan proposed a community science fair, while Emily imagined an art therapy program. True to her word, Jessica established strict transparency protocols. Every donated penny was tracked, every decision documented. Her dedication ensured that the foundation operated efficiently and ethically. Robert, initially met with suspicion, worked tirelessly behind the scenes. His experience in finance and management proved invaluable in structuring the foundation. Slowly, he began regaining his colleagues' trust, one day at a time. As another productive day ended, Michael found himself once more in his office, looking out at the city through the window. But this time, instead of loneliness, he felt a deep connection with every light shining out there. Sarah entered quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Everything okay?" Michael turned, a gentle smile on his lips. "Better than okay. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I should be, doing exactly what I should be doing." Sarah nodded, understanding. It's amazing how tragedy can be transformed into something so beautiful and meaningful. "Elizabeth and Sophie would be proud," Michael said softly, looking at a photo of his late wife and daughter on his desk. "They always believed in doing good, and now their legacy continues through every life we touch," Sarah added. Outside, in the newly renovated square, children played under the twilight sky. Their laughter echoed through the night, a living testimony to the impact Project New Dawn was already having. The birth of this legacy was not the end of a journey, but the start of another, one filled with hope, compassion, and transformation. And as Michael and Sarah watched the scene below, they knew this was only the beginning of something truly extraordinary. The crisp December air enveloped the town, but the heart of the central square pulsed with warmth and life. A year had passed since the creation of the New Dawn Foundation, and the transformation was palpable. Michael Thornton observed the scene from his office window at the Foundation's headquarters, a soft smile on his lips. The square, once simple and neglected, was now a vibrant hub of activity. Children laughed and played on colorful, safe equipment. Parents chatted on comfortable benches, and volunteers moved with purpose, preparing for the big Christmas celebration. Sarah entered the room, her arms full of papers and a radiant smile on her face. "Michael, you won't believe it." "You won't. Our academic tutoring program has already shown a 30% increase in participants' grades." Michael turned, his eyes shining with pride and gratitude. "Sarah, you've been incredible. Your programs are changing lives." Under Sarah's leadership, the foundation had implemented a series of innovative initiatives. Mobile health clinics visited underserved neighborhoods, offering free checkups. Art therapy workshops helped children process trauma and emotions. Financial education classes ensured entire families benefited from the support. Outside, Emily, Ethan, and Olivia, now 7 years old, darted from one group to another, their junior ambassadors, T-shirts gleaming in the winter sun. The triplets had grown alongside the foundation, their enthusiasm contagious. "Mr. Johnson," Ethan called to an elderly volunteer, "don't forget to add more books to the outdoor library." Olivia was busy organizing a group of younger children for story time, while Emily helped distribute healthy snacks. Michael watched the children with a mix of pride and nostalgia. "They've grown so much," he murmured. Sarah nodded, following his gaze. "And they've made such a difference. Their ideas inspired half our programs." Across the square, Robert Harris supervised the construction of a small stage for the Christmas celebration. Once consumed by greed, he now dedicated every moment to repairing the harm he'd caused. His expertise in finance and management proved invaluable, and day by day he earned back trust. Jessica Reeves, now the Foundation's official advisor, approached Robert with a clipboard. "The numbers for last quarter are flawless," she remarked. "Your financial management has been exemplary." Robert smiled timidly. "Thank you, Jessica. It means a lot to hear that from you." Jessica's unwavering integrity ensured that every donated penny was used ethically and efficiently, solidifying the New Dawn Foundation's reputation as a model of transparency. As evening approached, more and more people filled the square. Families from all over the town gathered, many of them direct beneficiaries of the Foundation's programs. The air was filled with anticipation and gratitude. Michael descended to join the crowd, stopping to talk with everyone he met. Children ran up to him, sharing stories of their achievements, showing drawings, and hugging him with pure joy. Every smile, every whispered "thank you," every look of renewed hope was a balm to Michael's heart. The pain of losing his family would never fully disappear, but it had been transformed into something beautiful and meaningful. When everyone was gathered, Michael climbed onto the stage. A hush fell over the crowd. "My friends," he began, voice filled with emotion, "a year ago we were all in a very different place. I was lost in pain and loneliness. Many of you faced challenges that seemed insurmountable." He paused, looking at the attentive faces. "But look at us now. Together we've turned tragedy into hope, pain into purpose. This Christmas isn't just a celebration of the holidays, but a celebration of our community, of our resilience, and of our commitment to each other." Sarah and the triplets joined him on stage, followed by Robert, Jessica, and dozens of volunteers. "The New Dawn Foundation isn't mine," Michael continued. "It's ours. Every child who learns to read, every family who receives support, every dream that comes true, that's the true Christmas miracle." The lights on the giant Christmas tree at the center of the square lit up, eliciting oohs and ahs from the crowd. Music began to play, and soon the square was alive with dancing, laughter, and joy. Michael stepped off the stage, immediately surrounded by hugs and words of thanks. He saw Robert playing with a group of children, his face radiant with the joy of redemption. Jessica spoke with parents, assuring them the foundation would continue to grow and support the community. Sarah approached, linking her arm with Michael's. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Michael looked up at the starry sky, thinking of Elizabeth and Sophie. "I'm at peace," he replied. "For the first time in a very long time, I feel I'm truly honoring their memory." The triplets ran over, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Come on," Emily exclaimed. "So let's sing Christmas carols." As they joined the large circle of singers, Michael felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. The tragedy that had nearly destroyed him had become the catalyst for something extraordinarily beautiful. Christmas in the square stretched late into the night, a celebration of hope, community, and new beginnings. And as the stars shone above, illuminating the smiling faces below, it was clear that Michael's legacy, a legacy of compassion, generosity, and resilience, had become a beacon of light for the entire community. The rebirth was complete, but the journey was far from over. It was only the beginning of a new chapter, filled with promise and infinite possibilities.